What's going on, guys? It's Bagas here and welcome back to another review video. And today we're gonna be reviewing a fan favorite documentary, or at least that's what I've found slash seen slash heard. Today we're gonna be reviewing Dinosaur Planet, specifically the one that released in 2003, because apparently there's a buttload of things that are called Dinosaur Planet. Dinosaur Planet is a 4-part documentary that depicts prehistoric creatures living their lives in the Late Cretaceous, specifically 80 million years ago, because apparently every episode is set during 80 million years ago, which I did not notice until very recently. Well, relatively recently anyways. Anyways, Dinosaur Planet distinguishes itself from other dinosaur documentaries by focusing more on storytelling aspects as opposed to just seeing these creatures in their daily lives. However, there is still a science aspect, as we do get cutaways to paleontologist Scott Sampson explaining certain things within the episodes in relation to the science behind it. Also, the documentary is narrated by Christian Slater, which I'll get to my opinions on his narration later in the video. Whitetip's journey focuses on an individual velociraptor named Whitetip, as she tries to survive in the Gobi Desert. The first third of the episode shows Whitetip struggling to find food all on her own after her previous pack was killed, being outmatched and outnumbered by 3 Prenocephalae, then being chased off by an Oviraptor, which by the way has one of my favorite designs in the entire show, and she stumbles onto a Protoceratops nest and being chased by an old male. However, she then catches a break when the old male that chased her fights another male and gets injured, allowing Whitetip to kill it and get a meal. Then we meet another pack of Velociraptors led by a male named Broken Hand, as they follow a blood trail that leads to the Protoceratops carcass Whitetip is eating, before they chase her off. After the pack have eaten their fill, Whitetip tries her luck and tries to join the pack, getting the interest of another male named Bluebrow. However, Broken Hand, feeling his position is threatened, fights with Bluebrow, but he ends up being more of a challenge to Broken Hand than he initially expected, and he beats Broken Hand, replacing him as the leader of the pack, allowing Whitetip to also join the pack. To prove her worth, the pack goes hunting for Protoceratops eggs and successfully poaches some, but Whitetip still finds herself in the bottom of the pecking order. 3 months later, Whitetip has climbed the ladder and is an expecting mother and later lays a clutch of 5, but with her having to guard her nest is unable to join the hunt that ends up with Blueborough and the rest chasing a Shuvuya. I am almost 100% I pronounced that wrong, before being chased off themselves by an Oviraptor. Back at the nest, Whitetip sees something that catches her eye, but when she's off guard, Broken Hand shows up and eats 2 of her eggs. Then, after the eggs hatch, the pack goes hunting again, on the way encountering Broken Hand finding a group of Prenocephalae, before arriving in an Oviraptor nest and eating the chicks. Then at night, a large storm pours, and in the morning, the pack goes hunting again, finding the dead body of Broken Hand before attacking a herd of Protoceratops, and at the end, a landslide occurs and buries a Protoceratops alongside Whitetip's pack, and ends up being the famous fossil found of a Velociraptor being locked in combat with a Protoceratops. Whitetip is then left on her own again, but this time accompanied by her babies. Meanwhile, we also get some science stuff darn in between, and I also really like the fact that they make fun of the Velociraptor design in Jurassic Park. The one aspect that I truly love was how the ending mirrors the opening, emphasizing how it's almost like it's Whitetip's destiny to forever be on her own. It's a nice subtle thing that your audience can conclude on their own. And in most stories, in the ending, everything is returned to normal, back to the status quo, but with a difference, which is exactly what they did here, and I really appreciated that. On a visual front, I love the designs in this episode. Even though the feathers look kinda weird, especially on the Velociraptors, it's something you'll get used to, and I love how they depict the dinosaurs with bird-like behavior, as birds are their closest relatives. Also, I was really impressed that they made Bluebrow an actual character with traits and personality, so when he does die, it is more impactful. The second episode, Pod's Travel, shows the concept of island dwarfism through the lens of a Pyroraptor named Pod. Much like the previous episode, I really like how this episode is structured, and it follows the 3-act structure incredibly well. The first act establishes the norm, introducing Pod and his pack alongside the creatures he shares his world with, while also foreshadowing future events with the tremors. Then, the inciting incident happens with a large tsunami hitting the island, leaving Pod and one of his sisters adrift, before a plesiosaur eats the sister. Also, this part has the one noticeable use of animatronics, and it's really not good. The animatronic is very different from the CGI model, and it just doesn't look good. Anyways, the second act then sees Pod wash up on a beach, and we see him adapt to this new world where he sees the familiar faces from his homeland, only on a smaller scale. Eventually, he finally accepts this island as his new home, and the third act sees him overcome his past challenges, symbolized by him killing the dwarf Tarascosaurus, and becoming the ruler of the island, and also being worshipped by dwarf Taurodons. The story then comes full circle with him coming back to the beach where he washed up, only this time as the ruler of the island rather than an outcast. I like how this episode is basically a prehistoric version of Gulliver's Travels. It's even mentioned in the show and referenced in the title. I also like the Pyroraptor designs a lot. The feathers are a lot better compared to the Velociraptors of the previous episode, and Pod is also a very interesting character to follow on his journey of discovery. Speaking of which, they utilize the 3-act structure incredibly well, creating a simple yet effective story of accepting change even if we don't choose for that change to happen, which is a very valuable life lesson we all need to learn, and to think it came from a dinosaur documentary. It just shows that this genre isn't limited by providing science lessons to the audience, but it can also teach us other valuable life lessons. Unlike the previous episode, Lil Das' Hunt doesn't really focus on one central character. Sure, the title is named after the young Das plesiosaurus Lil Das, but the story really jumps around to a bunch of different perspectives, rather than telling it exclusively through Lil Das' point of view. It starts with a hunt between a flock of Taurodons and a herd of Orodromius that ends up with one of the Taurodons being killed by ground eruptions, foreshadowing the looming threat that will change this ecosystem forever. Then we get introduced to a herd of Maiasaura with 2 youngsters, Buck and Blaze, straying away from the herd, unwittingly into an ambush, as a young Das plesiosaurus chases the 2 into his sisters that leads them to the mother of the pack, who manages to get hold of Buck, but unfortunately due to Das's, bulldozing into his mother, Buck manages to get away. The rest of the story basically sees Lil Das' family trying to kill Buck, but keep failing due to Lil Das' antics. While all this is going on, we also see the effects of the volcano on the highland dinosaurs. Near the end of the episode, we see the pack follow the Maiasaur herd to the volcano, and it finally explodes, engulfing all the dinosaurs in a massive pyroclastic flow. And also there's a great slow motion sequence as Das tries to outrun the pyroclastic flow that almost puts you directly in the action. The episode ends as we see how the game of Predator and Prey is the same, but the players have changed, with T-Rex taking the place of Daspletosaurus, and Edmontosaurus taking the place of Maiasaura. Also, I love the fact that they showed the old model of how dinosaurs walk upright, just to show how wrong we were and how much paleontology has progressed over the decades. I also spotted an Easter egg from another documentary that I might review in the future, assuming I have the will to actually watch it. Anyways, I don't really have much to say about this episode. It's just a solid episode with a very climactic finale. The final episode, Alpha's Egg, starts at medias res, where we first get introduced to the 2 central characters within the story, a Saltosaur named Alpha and an Archosaur named Dragonfly. We then see Alpha head to the nesting grounds where she lays her first clutch, before the story jumps back to 15 years ago to the day Alpha was laid. Sometime later, Alpha hatches from her egg after a close call with an Odosuchus. Then we jump to see how Dragonfly's family differs from that of Alpha's. After that, we then get an honestly really cool sequence where all the babies walk through the forest at night while predators are basically eating a sauropod buffet. And while most of them die, the sheer number of them ensure most of them survive, including Alpha. After this, we then get our first interaction between Dragonfly and Alpha as the Archosaur family hunts the baby Saltosaurs, and Alpha is nearly eaten by Dragonfly, but is saved due to his pitiful attention span. 15 years later, both dinosaurs have grown up, and Dragonfly's family is once again stalking Alpha's herd, and when one of them trips and falls on a log, the Archosaurs have a feast. Not too long after, a pair of Carcharodontosaurus hunts the Saltosaur herd. And no, I'm not going to mention the fact that they made a cross-Atlantic journey from Africa to South America, because it ain't important. Then we make it back to the beginning of the episode with Alpha back in the nesting grounds, only this time we learn that the eggs didn't make it due to heavy rainfall submerging the nest. We then get our final battle between Alpha and Dragonfly, which ends with Dragonfly's head being squashed by Alpha's weight. I think the aspect I enjoyed most about the episode, other than, the forest scene, was how both Alpha's and Dragonfly's lives converged, making it seem like it was always their destiny to encounter each other, and with the story always ending with one of them being killed by the other. I also felt that this episode was more action-focused from what I saw anyway. The story was relatively simple, with not many plot twists or turns, but it still worked for me personally, and I mean, ending the series with one final fight was pretty awesome despite its brevity. In conclusion, Dinosaur Planet is another solid dinosaur documentary. Like I said in the overview, the series focuses more on storytelling and narrative aspects as opposed to, almost purely science, and I think it accomplishes it very well, with episode 2 being a personal highlight. They tell a relatively simple story that they find a way to make it interesting. On a visual front, I love the designs in the show. They employ a lot of bright colors that make the dinosaurs stand out, and I also like how they have sexual dimorphism, so we can easily distinguish between the male and the female. Not only that, I also appreciate how, especially with theropods, they included a lot of bird-like behavior. However, some of the blending with the environment can be a bit off, and there's also some scenes where the CGI models don't properly interact with the environment, like how sometimes the animals don't leave footprints when they're walking on sand. Also, the narration was a hit and miss for me. They can have some, poetic lines in the script.
The Troodons are the first victims of the dark force that rules a volcanic kingdom.
And at times it just feels weird and out of place.
And stay away!
The way Christian Slater also narrates can be a bit distracting, as the inflections and the intonations within his voice can kind of draw you out of the scene in some instances. But aside from that, I thoroughly enjoyed the series, and it definitely ranks with some of the best dinosaur documentaries out there, especially from a narrative and storytelling point of view. So, time to put them on the tier list. So, quality-wise, I would give Dinosaur Planet a 4.7. Like I said, this series focuses heavily on the storytelling and narrative aspects, and it's very, very good in that. The stories are very well paced, and I don't know, they managed to keep the story simple but still interesting. The other things I like were, also how the creatures are very well designed, a lot of bright colors employed, which, is contrast to a lot of, those early dinosaur documentaries where they're almost monochromatic. And, I really liked how, they portrayed the dinosaurs with more bird-like features. But, the only thing that kind of drops it down a bit was some of the CGI scenes kind of falters, specifically with the interaction with the environment. But other than that, it's still pretty damn decent. Entertainment-wise, I would give it a 4.5 because the stories, to me especially, are just very entertaining to watch. And, the narrative is also easy to follow, and therefore the entire episode is easy to watch. And, there's some interesting plots in some of the episode, with episode 2 being, my personal favorite episode. Because I just love the concept within that episode, so that's why it gets a 4.5. Rewatchability, I would give it a 4.2 because it's, despite only having 4 episodes, it is still a 48-minute episode, the same length as the Prehistoric Park episodes, and when you times that by 4, you'd still get a total of like 3 and a bit hours. That's actually more than the Walking With series, so even though it only has 4 episodes, it's the same length as the Walking With series, and if I put the Walking With series at, I think a 4, I'm pretty sure, I don't know, I don't remember, but I can't put this any higher. Well, I am technically higher because the story redeems it, and it's only 3 hours. It's not the monstrosity that is Prehistoric Park that's 5 hours long. And like I said, the story really makes it that easy to rewatch, and I know it's just a good example of good. I guess it kind of borders between fiction and non-fiction, and I think that aspect is what makes it interesting to rewatch. As for my personal opinion, I'd give it a 4.8. Honestly, like, after rewatching it, I enjoyed this a lot more. I really enjoyed the stories, and I'm just repeating myself again, but I mean, this series focuses on storytelling aspects, as I've already said pretty much like 100 times at this point, but that's the aspect I love most about it. So, that brings the total up to an 18.2, landing it solidly in the S tier. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, and yeah, first of all, I don't want to say, I apologize for the fact that my uploading schedule has been kind of a mess recently. School's been really, really busy, and I just hadn't had the time to record and stuff. And in fact, actually, I think I planned for this video to come out tomorrow on Sunday, and I'm recording this part on Saturday, even though I recorded I think I recorded the intro until, I think, Lil Das's Hunt last week, and I'm continuing here because I've been really busy with stuff and just haven't had time, especially to edit this. Because I mean, to be fair, it's not really that hard, but the first episode was kind of long, the script last week, so yeah, I'm still not finished editing it. But I do plan for it to come out tomorrow. Hopefully it'll come out tomorrow. If not, it'll definitely come out on Monday. But I just want to say that my uploading schedule is kind of a mess right now, and I don't know when it's gonna return back to normal. Probably, you'll obviously get the Sunday videos, because for those videos I usually work on Saturday and then upload on Sunday. But for the Wednesday videos, they're gonna be interchangeable. Well, interchangeable, not really. They're gonna be like sometimes they go on, sometimes you don't, depending on how busy I am that week. Because I'm not gonna force myself to to upload a video if I'm not really into it, too tired, because that can lead to a burnout, which I definitely experienced throughout the last week. But enough of that. I've also been trying to smoothen that, well, streamline. That's the proper word. My episode segments so not too long, even though I kind of only did that after I finished with Whitetip because I realized how long that was and I didn't want another 25-minute video. But I think that's all I have to say. So yeah, I'll see you in the next video. I have no idea what the next video is gonna be. Depending on, like I said, depending on how things go. It might come out on Wednesday. It might come out next week. We'll see. But yeah, bye.